Hello, General Hurtling and MSNBC. Please help me. My name is Anthony Wall. I was next to the World Trade Center towers the morning of the attack on September 11th, 2001. Before the attack, and that was in Manhattan, New York. Before the attack, I recorded New Haven, I mean, Connecticut, intercities, Connecticut, and intra-cities, Connecticut, on off the campuses and intra campuses, hyper additional collusion slash S through time, intercities connected and intra cities. I only know a Paul Zano planting evidences. I never even seen them with a Mark C.M. Paglione and a Rick C.M. Paglione. He recorded, confessed, demonstrate, confirmed they're involved with people on my street that used to be with multiple police departments now, involved forging and switching names, fake conversations with me when I was a kid, and then as an adult, I had live progressions with WFSB and with their roles with the Saudi attackers, with a whole bunch of countries with the people involved with WFSB, per worse. And everyone's forced to speak through others. That's how they get away with blaming sides until, in other words, you guys can't go back. In other words, since you guys were kids, it's recorded, you were child abused. Per what I caught them doing with the principal child abuser and ongoing. You have people with WTNH planting fake motivations with their kids for the breaching method, for the foreign countries with them. I don't even know this O'Neill family. They have their kids involved with the Leahy family too on Facebook, all kinds of organized crimes. They got their little daughter involved with, little cowards. Get them on paper and Facebook. These are people involved with Facebook, all these different countries, and all sides of criminal and civil cases. They have personally and professionally a bunch of judges and prosecutors involved with the Leahy family, involved with a Rick C.M. Paglione and a Paul Zano with confessions came out on my street to make confessions and demonstrations of their roles planting evidences in databases. Fake ties, fake nature of ties to me. They've been planting evidences with the Britain Spear Court families, with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and sexual and medical offenders of kids, leaders of kids already proven years apart, and more recorded now and then involved. I caught them with the principal child abuser first. This is recorded. They also use the news to pretend others are recorded. And the interbranch putting fake transcripts in their databases with the federal. So in other words, you guys aren't capable of reading. You guys have to be led by the hyper invisible but still discernible dysfunctional. For example, you guys can't be honest about your readings of Posse Fumatatis or counters to it. I'm not even a lawyer. We have black people's whites of eyes. That is inseparable from the subject /S of American history. The only reason this isn't risen where we all believe it, in other words, they're going to poll us and say things and word things because there's influences over the syntax. Like Quinnipiac University has people involved increasingly with this campus I only went to for 1 year. I had in other words, I was in kindergarten on Valleycrest Street. I don't even know the people there, but I forgot his name. Increasingly, people involved with the other countries, like with DACA, and their rules, like with marketing and there, and with the syntax, everyone want to have. Oh, we want discipline in private. In other words, and you guys speak about values as systems tactical ulterior from how nature is communicating about value. It is showing us that we are a human species body of a whole bunch of individual bodies. While there were a whole bunch of individual species bodies, note that the rest of them with no criminal foreign influences, let alone self-valued criminal foreign influences, relative to where and to how the breaching method tortured, extorted, and had everyone, in fact, treating nature enslaved, and only allowed to be. No wealth or wealth criminally foreign influenced. or discerned. That's one of the things. At the same time, President Trump is speaking about it using truth properly. And at the same, but defending it wrongly. And at the same time, the counters to it are using truth properly, but defending it wrongly. Exactly the way the breaching method wants and needs. Lisa Valdez. Nature's demonstrations of negative value nature progressions and demonstration / of it and of the breaching method. But everyone only remembers those demonstrations of it and of the breaching method. Instead, used effectively to keep blamed on other things, others, ourselves, wrongly. I don't know if you guys hear all those dogs. I feel like it's because every once in a while, it's like you hear that. There's like a pack of dogs. Sounds like they just got a cat. I don't know if you heard that. Like, maybe they're taking down all the land. It's not because there's not enough space. Means come out of nowhere. The home designs were designed before America's founders were even born to cause negative value nature progressions, acts, and nature. And so everyone, even to me, that's what made Native Americans fight with Native Americans before they were Native Americans, before America's founders were even born. A breaching method came from before religious messengers' births. They didn't have free speech. Through the method that keeps everyone collusions with the breaching method, forcing equality of fact, treating nature as criminal insidiousness / hypercriminal insidiousness. I am not a lawyer. Lawyers will help us properly. Not properly until we outline it ourselves. Oh, but in other words, which I forgot the term for it, if they could do it pro bono. Not like that, in other words. We have to make convictions by what is true always, humanity. Not denying the slightest exceptions, in other words. Not faking them, not valuing them being and having been faked. There are all kinds of criminally foreign influence and uses of the criminal foreign influence, fact, cheap nature, quality aspects and nature of people next to the state capital of Connecticut. Non-verbally, a former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, confirmed he has collusions with that, and others with Hangdog Lane and Two Rod Highway, involved with wire crime acts and methods of Wethersfield police through the years, drugs, crimes, untimely death rolls. Brian Boner said he has roles with it too. Now, these are people with military, with Wethersfield police, wire crimes, and and different natures of, all natures. They have roles with all kinds of things, and they're not supposed to tell about, but they tell about it, including all the types of drugs and things like that with the Harvard Hospital. Harvard Hospital has a bunch of people involved with the Leahy family that faked conversations with me. They have multiple courts, judges, and prosecutors personally and professionally involved with them, planting and having planted evidence on my street. They put me and other kids to fake ties to doctors that weren't at all when we were kids, and when we're adults too. They have the police could force people for mental evaluation. Though a whole bunch of people that were involved there with the intercampuses and intra-campuses of all ages and natures, they're involved with organized crime methods per a method that uses that to show them they can't afford to have what's actually recorded, discerned by anyone. There are real threats in the world because the breaching method exploited the phenomenon of how only locations, areas, and states could operate the phenomenon of the names of countries. So it did, and there are proofs that a transnational, what we should refer to as a hyper-archetypal criminal enterprise, because it also will help us reveal syntax that could appreciate concepts better than, like war syntax, war crimes, war statutes. This phrase war crimes can't be appreciated properly because they have replaced how James Madison's plan. Where James Madison's plan is the only correct answer, even for what caused the Civil War. It is replaced. James Madison's plan caused the Declaration of Independence. James Madison's plan caused everyone to pretend they had other motivations. The breaching method also forced that. The breaching method had no one allowed free speech. The breaching method forced everyone to pretend they had free speech to an extent /S too, otherwise to be censed through their own too. Everyone had only remembered roles with torture, extortion, slavery, fact, human nature styles of identity theft, fraud, slander styles. You should see what is recorded about what they do. They make people attack differences, not because of groupthink, because of worse than groupthink, keeping the groupthink manifest. In other words, even how the businesses and houses next to campuses are manifest. Their names, the composure of their natures, their styles of reason, logic. They're involved with identity theft, fraud, slander. And they don't allow you to dress it. They try to make fake examples too, fake exceptions on a mass scale. The breaching method already showed the names of the people, the scientists, certain type of victim / hyper victim that they reacted to it by how they could cover it up by self-valuing fake exceptions, exception nature. Had that honesty, care for life, for the sacrifices of people, for their jobs, their titles. In other words, let's look at even the groupings of overt criminal enterprises. Their sacrifices, like with New York City, and where they have they have self-value collusion /S against themselves with criminal enterprises, leaving out the breaching method. Because the suburbs were designed to cause negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures to force everyone to self-value. The only means to cause positive value nature progressions, acts, and natures more and more is that people are valuing how the collusion /S with making criminal insidiousness natures of positives out of negatives. Nature shows us this. We don't have to be lawyers. Implore. In other words, we need free speech, though. We need people that aren't, the networks were shown that, including through the sales of the networks, and they hide this without showing that, they have obligations to show that. WFSB is stealing my identity. They planted all kinds of fake collusions, investigators of all natures. And against all things that they're involved with investigation, they're involved with those things, and with the many countries involved with the campuses together. Then they want to pretend they can speak about integrity here and there. The breaching method knew they would try to have to speak for integrity anyway, as styles, needs, and nature, showing how to get away with it. Pretend that you care about an oath in the Constitution. If you care about the Constitution, you care about it being unabridged. We have black pupils, whites of eyes to discern those abridgments standing. The suburbs were designed tactically denatured. Why really? They're just aggression taught to fight that way. Hear many pray because the campus failed. and hyper failed. And to specifically keep all counters to it, James Madison declassified things, vaccines, things still here replaced. All paste, not one has traced. So we have the experts on war, measure and maintain self-value, collusion /S, with criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, wrought uses of corrections offices and the state judicial branch offices. Hyper additionally with names on all sides of criminal and civil cases and the interbranch names and intelligence tied to them, foreign and domestic, never stop being shared. Tactical ulterior from how our nature shows us three ways are increasingly valued differently. And we have to try to make them the way that is positive always to itself. Otherwise, it demonstrates. See, but nature made everyone self-value roles with those demonstrations, causing those demonstrations, because they have no choice. Like that's why the suburbs are designed to cause negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. We must read. I'm going to use it. I don't even know who said it. It was a Native American. I don't know if it was Navajo Traditional Teachings YouTube channel. About someone said, we must read each other's dreams. As a Native American saying that, because remember, the reason we don't have the reason everyone has self-value sequence shifts, for example, each of the sciences, this breaching method makes sequence shift styles manifest. It measures and maintains. Others being has been taught for reason. The reason experts are criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw with the military, replacing with James Madison too. Not just the military, every names of the jobs, every name of difference. We have the same color eyes in different color eyes at the same time. So then people want to pretend that their passions and emotions and their motivations by defending a difference. If any voice tries to use what is hyper evidential, because there are collusions that each difference's voices have together relative to how this breaching method had everyone originally still measuring and maintaining sensing for itself. Any voice, not collusion, not just because they were internationally monitored conversations that measured and maintained roles even with slavery, northern colonies and southern colonies, and then America's founders were born. But it was slavery because to make it and keep it a subject that they knew everyone would try to come out of. But to come out of it, they would have to make it a subject. And they would have to leave it as an isolated subject, leaving out the exceptions and leaving out the breaching method's roles with it, trying to pretend to be a bit against it fully, but leaving out the breaching method's roles with it. Exactly the way it knew everyone would. We're supposed to pay attention to how sickly, non-distinctly, too. Totally different countries had collusions with slavery entrenched. And they had internationally companies, the local area states, collusions with that. And those international companies, they didn't get along with themselves. Just like no one got along with themselves here. All natures of people getting along, too. That is too employed by the breaching method. Reassign how nature communicates with difference / hyper difference. In other words. So we have to be led by the hyper invisible but still discernible, because the people, posse comitatus, people are right some ways, but the president is right other ways. But where they're both wrong at the same time, they have self-value collusion / S with the only people that they have to rely on, like at triages. And that they're confessing, demonstrating, confirming they have more than one intelligence agency involved with people with the houses in place and businesses next to Harvard Hospital, for example, involved intercities and intrust cities with names next to campuses, involved with the Leahy family, a bunch of people, involved with the family members of journalists, their colleagues, the different natures of conjunctions to them, their neighbors, used to criminally foreign influence sense and sensibilities Everyone forces a quality of action nature that is incapable of affording exceptions in exception nature treated properly. And the breaching method uses that and used that. It shows there are means recorded to discern. One of the things forgiveness is about, a whole bunch of reasons that forgiveness are relative to understanding this breaching method and how, like, there are collusion /s, like with the black people's whites of eyes that no one wants. But then when someone tries to use that as evidence, because, like, for example, we have black people's whites of eyes and that's left out. That's one of the means that little kids have to discern. The identities of the law aren't capable of speaking for that difference properly. Individually grouped in together, the branch of government and the exceptions. In other words, exception nature, value being valued, having been used at tactical terror from how nature uses is exceptions in exception nature. It is not our species body that is generating a whole bunch of different species bodies, birds, fish, each one made up a whole bunch of bodies. We are the only species that is criminally foreign influenced, let alone hyper criminally foreign influenced, and self-valued rolls with that. And where nature is demonstrating it, people are kept only capable of blaming that on criminal foreign influences. And that was kept until those criminal foreign influences became real. Specifically for the breaching method, to hide behind and through that. The counters to there are border countries and states, families, like involved with Mark Violet and a Mike Violet, people from other areas that came on my street to put fake ties, fake natures of ties to me. People I never tried to contact. And I caught them involved with the interbranch forging and switching names, involved with the World Trade Center attack. And I in other words, and everyone's just speaking anyway. I asked them many times to get me out the fake conversation with WFSB. They have people, I don't know their names, all of them yet, all the countries involved. A bunch of people tied to intimate ties, multiple intimate ties of a Claudia Scalora are involved. And with people named DeMoro, involved with home break-ins in my area, and police with collusions with such, and police forums, and with the people with the intimate ties to retired police chiefs from Wethersfield. A police chief, Centron, has a bunch of people with East Hartford intelligence in locations that are leaking slowly and demonstrating their roles with the corner of Elm Street and Route 3 in Rocky Hill from years before a Mazzucato bakery was there. They're involved with identity theft, fraud, slurs, pretending passions and emotions and motivations, where and how they already have to hide that at interbranch locations because they already had collusions with names on all sides of criminal and civil cases, and with other, keeping that the outcome /S, and then further hyper additionally as collusion /S with the state judicial branch offices and with conjunctions to it and to that. There's also Mr. Neville is non-verbally confirmed. Basically, we never had a personal conversation with him. He's non-verbally confirmed, involved with people involved with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, with grammar school kids and middle school kids, putting fake ties, fake natures of ties between people that never even saw each other, don't even know each other, and trying to make fake exceptions. Increasingly, there are other men and women and kids who recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed they have roles with some abuses of little girls sexually. I'm not saying that Mr. Neville had roles with that, but he has roles with syntax of one of the girls who was forced by a bunch of people at the Britain Superior Court intercities before the World Trade Center attack, involved with such. Also, there's a detective, Samuda, involved with a former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, his co-defendants, their family members, their lawyer, people associated with their depositions, and that were involved at West Harper locations planting evidences, and with Harper courts, family members, and intimate ties, also with foreign and domestic military. And these are people with a Officer Hunter, I don't know. He's one of the ones all along Park Street and conjunctions to it and to that, which also connects people years apart that I don't even know, or where there were quick statements when I walked by a corner of a building. In other words, increasingly too, Harvard Hospital has this Leahy family that fakes transcripts with me at campuses, including medical campuses that are filmed 24/7. They're faking transcripts, and they have a bunch of people that work there that have been attaching little kids around their own, that kids that they don't even know. And God help the ones that they do have conversations with and have collusions with that. Like a Chris Walters. There are more people with the name Walters. I don't even know. I never had a word of conversation with. But there is a Dillon family that's recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed by adults and kids when I was a kid and I was an adult. And he non-verbally confirmed when I was a kid and I was an adult. He has collusions on my street with sexual and medical offenders of kids that are also involved with organized crimes with them, and with medical offenders of kids, involved with ones with badges too, with this Leahy family, and their roles with Parks and Rec people, and people with the state, with the Weathersfield Community Center, involved also with people with fire departments and with other countries. I only saw Ray Colo and Joe DeMoro there one time real quick, and they made confessions of their roles West Hartford, something to do with their roles with West Hartford and syntax, where they have collusion / yes, I recorded with people that been putting fake things in databases at campuses I went, and with names next to it, all tied to them. Even when the campuses they didn't go, like the first campus I went to, there are increasingly people on Valleycrest Street next to it involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders with them, and with people tied to a Kevin Harris. And then he was made reportedly intimately tied to a daughter of a Mr. Murphy, who I barely know, but I know I had good feelings for Mr. Murphy, my principal. When I was in that same grammar school, I caught them with the principal child abuser with. It has something to do with a Rick Cianfaglione and a Tim O'Brien, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. Their parents, they have the corners of Highcrest Street involved planting evidences with some judges and prosecutors and the Leahy family and others with medical offenders of kids and sexual offenders of kids, like involved with a Domain family. A Domain family, also teachers recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. A Domain's involved with them with the religious syntax, religious differences, involved with them with motivated to sequence shifts when they're pretending what they think about what others say. They're trying to make themselves be called names. If people don't call them names, they just do little tricks with planting evidences with like a Paul Zano. I only know him seeking me out to make confessions, demonstrations. He has roles with federal evidences crimes, with people from Central Connecticut State University, UConn, and Trinity College. Also with a bunch of people like Mark Violet, involved with people with medical corruption, with Harvard Hospital in UConn, and foreign and domestic military, and names next to it, with the Black KKK theme, Latino theme, Italian theme, Irish theme. Weathersfield Police said to have a Frankie Reese, and the FBI has a Frankie Reese. Whether they know this is the least plausible, but it's recorded too. And Whiting Forensics has a Frankie Reese involved with the Clinton Correctional Facility and with the state judicial branch offices, increasingly with people on my street that used to live in my area, involved with multiple police departments, and with the house that's further reported related to Phil Colo, who I only saw on my street one time, definitely, on a bike. Only time I ever saw him outside of a car. I think I saw him in a car before, or truck. I don't know if it was him. The only time I ever saw him on a bike, which is his confirmation of his roles with people from whiting forensics with the principal upskirt nature. They're trying to make violence. And if you don't have violence, they're trying to use that for evidences to cover up what I caught them doing too. They have roles intercities with leasing agents that were also involved increasingly with people from my grammar school, with people directly and indirectly with World Trade Center attack predicate acts. Also recorded with WFSB, with WTNH sources. One of them confessed that there's a Lance Cuddy, and a bunch of people have a Lance Cuddy involved with courts and prosecutors and judges and foreign countries involved with Alina's Pizza and places on Park Street and conjunctions to it involved before and after the World Trade Center attack with federal evidences crimes and roles with collusions with uses of names on all sides of criminal and civil cases and the interbranch and intelligence tied to them, planting federal evidences crimes roles forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded, only allowed, and with the news at the same time. And then investigators use that for their fake motivations because the breaching method needs its motivations. They have roles with people from Korea increasingly with identity theft, fraud, slanders against me. And I don't even know them. They'll tell you this. But these are the ones with the FBI and the other countries. They're using their differences. They're keeping the families involved. Like, I don't even, in other words. So like a Joe DeMoro, and there are people with the name John DeMoro. I never saw him on campus in my life. They try to make a quick exception with Joe DeMoro. In other words, at one campus and then at the other campus, like out of years I was there. Never saw Joe DeMoro around on campus. Never saw John DeMoro ever. There wasn't even a fake exception planted real fast. But those people are increasingly tied to people who put fake exceptions. And something to do with the community center has rules of parks and recreation with some sexual and medical offenders of kids and types of police forms that are supposed to be against drugs. They're putting fake uses of drugs and alcohol pretended into databases. They have all kinds of scams with the law too. I mean, with the lawyer, even the private law with there and the relative delusions. They have been self-valued roles, needs and natures pretending other too, replacing what James Madison left declassified for his communications while replacing what nature communicates. I'm not even a doctor. I can delineate their delusions from their criminally foreign influence, fact, human nature, quality aspects in nature associated with this. A bunch of doctors recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed they have federal evidence as crimes and predicate acts, organized crimes with sexual and medical offenders, digital crimes, pretending other too, changing and faking, hiding, obfuscating what's actually digitally recorded, and at their locations associated with themselves. The military has roles with translators, educators like a Dr. Shub, a doctor of modern languages, has roles with his family with probate courts, and probate courts with their roles with drugs, and then resolutions about that, and although that subject separate from that, and that there's a rat trap / hyper rat trap that wants to be called a rat trap. In other words, the elderly homes, only capable of being that, manifest that way, and the veterans' homes. You guys, the suburbs were designed tactically to nature. No one could even sustain, food for themselves, even on the suburbs that were designed before America's founders were born, for a torture, extortion, slavery method that no one wanted rolls with. All exceptions in exception nature that appear to be real. The breaching method has everyone using that, pretend that's real, pretend it's debatable. There are things that aren't even debatable. They're gotten away with for being pretended debatable, but relative to how each age and nature of campus from off them has had hyper additional collusion /s. They need to lie about what they think about what we're saying. Change, fake, hide the predicate acts, the short words. They're the ones calling these things on themselves. So increasingly, interstates, there are people from Vermont and from Quinnipiac University involved with the Kevin Harris, with judges and prosecutors and foreign and domestic military that have roles with World Trade Center predicate acts tied to something with their roles with identity theft, fraud, trying to act so other people can film things or so they can have things filmed by cameras to put fake ties, fake natures of ties to people. And then they say, oh, everyone's lying. There's no one gets on paper legitimately as collusion/S. These are increasingly people too. Further hyper additionally with the collusions with the state corrections offices and the state judicial branch offices. And the prisons have collusion with the same house/S, including kids' prisons involved with the same house/S, with identity theft, fraud, standards, and their educators involved. And then pretending it's the campuses defending themselves from suits. They're putting themselves offensively. You know, they're making confessions. The breaching method had modern countries, locations, areas, and states making confessions to it without them even realizing it before the messengers of modern religions were even born. To have the church distinctly also start taking confessions, but also non-distinctly. Everyone still has collusion/S. Forgiveness is because where we could discern everyone with collusions or sensing for the breaching method, that's all we have to discern. Black pupils, it is time. Prepare each human mind.